Hi, I'm Ellen from Ochre Okra. I just wanted to have a quick go through this woven wall barrier that I've been building on the compost. A couple of people have asked about that. This is a really cheap, temporary, relatively low labour way to retain the compost is what I'm using it for here. You can also use it to make like one season veg beds, those sorts of things. It'll last a little longer depending on what sort of plant matter you make it out of. So I'm just going to show you. We're starting our new batch of compost in this bed. So what I've done is I've gone to the other ends of the property where we have bamboo growing and grabbed some bamboo to cut into stakes, and I'm going to pop them like the three in the middle here. So these three I just had here around the paddock. They're just all broken and things like that. This one's actually broken halfway, but and as you can see, I've got a shorter one here, and then I've stuck another short one behind it halfway up. So it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be particularly structurally sound, because all your sticks and limbs are going to hold it in place. So I'll give you a look what we're doing over this side. Alright, so I've just started by stripping the branches off those, which is great because just chuck them straight in the compost. I've made them a bit higher than the compost heap itself, and I'm just pushing them into the ground. What's great is because the weaving is going to hold them in place, they don't actually have to be driven into the ground too much, which is good because these don't have a very good top to drive in with anything. So literally all I'm doing is using my body weight and giving it a twist, going down as far as I can, which is really hard to do while I'm filming, and it's not very sturdy at all, but it's staying upright kind of by itself, and that's all it really needs to be, because the other sticks are going to hold it in place. Obviously I've got enough room at the top to drive that in a bit more, so we'll see how we go. Alright, so I've pushed these stakes in, these bamboo stakes in as far as I can. Again, I know they're wonky, but the woven materials are going to hold them steady once we get going. And as you can see, the first layer of carbon is below this sleeper. So basically, I want to keep going with my layers until I'm getting to the top of that sleeper, and then we're ready to start weaving. So I got my carbon layer. In terms of my booster, in this case, I'm doing something a bit different. These are partially digested worm castings, I guess you could say. Basically, this worm farm was outside, it wasn't particularly utilised, it got left in a big rainstorm, and unfortunately all the wormies have drowned. So there's no worms in there, but they're left this sort of sludge that's not quite worm castings and not quite food scraps. So I'm going to chuck that in here. Of course I could chuck that straight in the bottom of a bed, but we need the compost to fill our beds, so I don't have a garden bed to put it in at the moment. So we're going to use it as our booster layer, and we've got two this size. You can actually see that that's not been very good at composting because all these seeds have sprouted. So here's what was in our worm bin. We're going to spread that out, give it another good soak, and then add our nitrogen layer. Hi, I'm Ellen from Ochre Okra. I'm just walking you through how I'm working on my woven front of my compost bin. So I've just built up this greenish layer. You can see it's coming to the top of my sleeper here. So I'm going to use some of these weed stems, hopefully without too many seeds, to start weaving here. So I'll show you how that works. So we've got 3 stakes. As I said, they're just really loosely put in the ground. And then we've got a bit of flexible whatever you have on hand. These are stalks from some kind of weed. This thing, you can see that, whatever that is. The seeds look like they've all pretty much gone, and we're hoping this will heat up so it won't be too much of an issue anyway. So if you remember how to weave or braid, probably from primary school years, all I'm doing is using the space in between the bits of the pallet to put the end in front of the first one, behind the second one, in front of the third one. Usually, yeah, we're using bamboo, so they're going to get stuck on these little limbs, but that's fine. And then back in the part of the pallet there. So we've got our first little section. And then the next one, we're going to do the exact same thing, but in the opposite direction. And if these don't have seed heads, just going to chuck them straight in here. Okay, so we're going to go behind the first one, bring that so it's in front of the pallet, watching out for these little nodules. In front, behind, in front. I'm going to fix my original one. If they snap a little bit or break, it doesn't matter because they're really strong together. Okay, so that's our first little section. Often I'll have shorter lengths, so they'll only come up to here. As long as they can reach from behind here to behind here, then you're sweet. And sometimes I'll just shove an extra little stick in to give me a little bit less of a span to cover. Okay, so we're back on this one, so we're going behind, in front, behind. As you can see, that only reaches here. That's fine. Just grab another shorter bit. It's that same spot, behind, in front, behind. Now, as I said, this doesn't have to be anywhere near perfect because it's the structure as a whole that creates the strength. And it also doesn't matter if you've got bigger holes in between this. If you're using less bendy sticks, then it really doesn't matter, because it's gonna, that compost is moist, it's gonna hold itself up a little bit. This is just to stop it all piling out the front, especially when I start mucking around forking it. So we've gone behind, so this is our fourth one. We've gone behind to start, we're now starting in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, and push it down. So you can use this, as I said, for the edges of garden beds. Obviously you'd want to use the smaller hardwood stakes and smack them in really well. This would last you a season, maybe a little bit more. And if you use different types of materials, if I used sturdier sticks to do this, it would last longer than these weedy canes. These are just what we have, and they do the trick. And because we slashed, they are everywhere. And the way I do this, I want to be able to still get in there to put the materials in there, so I don't go too high at a time. I go up to about the height of the material once it's evened out, and I don't add on until my pile's getting much higher. So I'll probably do a few more. I'll even that out. My inner perfectionist deal with this bit that's not very level here. And then the other thing is sticks like this that are a bit of a pain in the compost. They're too big to be composted easily. They're too small to be particularly usable for other things, but you can prop them in and just use the other sections of cane. So I tend to, as those come up and they're bugging me in the compost, I just pop them into this woven section. So I'm going to put it on hyperlapse, and we'll do a couple more, and then I'll show you when we finished off. Alright, so that's that finished, and I'm ready to add my next layer on top there.